welcome to another Friday edition of Life Experiences with William Pelarenos. It's a pleasure to be here, and we are continuing our discussion from last week about these immigration raids. We discussed the logistics from a police standpoint of what they have to do, how they're doing it to conduct these raids in the city and the suburbs. And I guess people have been taken away from Elgin to Waukegan to Chicago, and a lot of these people that have been taken away also have criminal arrests. So as I mentioned last week, it's really easy for the immigration service just to cross-reference the clerk's computers and see who's been arrested for felonies or misdemeanors such as DUIs, and checking their immigration status and just scooping these people up, which they did. So I promised we would have an immigration attorney, and we have one who graciously gave up his lunch hour to be with us today. John Heiderscheidt. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
Did I pronounce your name right?
Very, very close. You did a lot better than most people do on the first attempt. It's Heiderscheidt.
Hey, I got an ethnic name too, Pelarenos. So
Yep.
I used to, when I was a policeman, I used to get mail, anybody with a P, Palumbo, it wasn't even my mail.
You learn to be very forgiving with a last name like
Oh,
Heiderscheidt.
I don't care how they pronounce it, just spell it right, I tell them.
John is a lot easier. We can stick with that.
All right, John, you've been an immigration attorney for about 14 years now?
Well, I've been a lawyer in Illinois for a little more than 13 years. I've practiced immigration law in Illinois and some immigration courts outside of Illinois for probably the last 6 or 7 years.
All right. So a lot of people are worried. They're getting worried they're going to get scooped up. I've even got text messages from green card holders. And, of course, we discussed a little earlier, these DACA recipients. So let's clear the air. You know facts as a lawyer. Who's in jeopardy here? Or when they come to your office, how do you determine how to move forward on a case?
Well, the first thing we do at Heiderscheidt Law Group, and we have a DBA as subscription lawyer because it's easier to type that into the internet than Heiderscheidt Law Group. Yeah. So you can learn about our process at subscriptionlawyer.com. But when somebody comes in to talk with us, the first thing we do is we do a consult, and that consult is free. And we sit down for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and you do an intake with an intake specialist. And the big question, getting to what you were saying about, I'm a green card holder, I'm a DACA recipient, I have H-1B, I have no status. The first thing we have to do is we have to figure out what status do you have or do you not have status. When we talk about people who are in the most jeopardy for the most immediate removal actions right now, you're looking at people without status. And what does that mean? That means you came into the United States without inspection, however you got in, whether you walked across, you drove across, people brought you here. If you came in without status, you're always going to be in jeopardy of being removed. And that's true no matter who the president is. It's just that right now we have a president and soon to be a cabinet, a full cabinet that will enforce and use their discretion to enforce immigration law in a totally different way than it's been done in the past 10 or 15 or 20 years or so. So if you don't have status, if you came in unlawfully or weren't inspected, and the ICE director, Tom Homan, has made this clear, you're always in jeopardy. Now, who are they stating that they're prioritizing right now? They're stating that they're prioritizing people with violent criminal histories. And to the best of my knowledge, that seems to be true. However, that doesn't mean that if you're around somebody who's an enforcement priority, but maybe you're a lower enforcement priority, that you can't get caught up in enforcement action. So if you have status here, if you're a green card holder, if you're a B2 visitor in status, if you're an H-1B or an H-2A or whatever you may have and you're in status, you're not going to be at that enforcement priority list. It's if you came in a way that this administration views as the wrong way, or that is the wrong way under immigration law, or if you have a criminal history, you could be, and especially if you look at the Lake and Riley Act that just passed, it changed Section 236C of the INA to make mandatory detention of immigrants with criminal histories much easier and actually allow for detention just on criminal allegations. So we're still very early here in the new Trump administration, the second Trump administration, and we will definitely see some different priorities. It's still only a couple days in, and we'll need to gather more data to see if the enforcement actions are matching what's being advertised.
Yes, you make a good point. And for listeners that don't understand, the Lincoln Riley Act, that was based on a woman that was murdered by an illegal immigrant, I believe in New York, correct?
Georgia.
Georgia, I'm sorry. So that act, what did it enable the federal government to do?
Well, so under existing immigration law before the Lincoln Riley Act, there were certain convictions that if you had on your background, you were supposed to be detained until the immigration court could figure out if you had a pathway to status or if it was going to enter a removal order. And that's 236C under the INA. The Lincoln Riley Act changes some of the language of 236C and expands the authority of the immigration judge to order, or in some cases expands the circumstances where the law orders the immigration judge to take custody of an immigrant while their case plays out, whether they have a cancellation application or whether they have an asylum or Convention Against Torture application, or whether they have cancellation for non-permanent residence. You can also ask for certain kinds of prosecutorial discretion like deferred enforcement, though I don't expect too many of those will be granted under this new administration. So those are just some of the things you look at.
I loved you giving you all the legalese, but if any of our listeners are questioning any of this or got a question, our phone lines are open today, Matt.
Sure are.
What are they?
That's 847-931-1410. You can also text us at 505-926-1410. That's our text information line.
Yes. So if you got any immigration questions, and I know I've been getting a few of them, please call in. The lawyer's here. He gave up his afternoon to be with us very graciously. And your offices are where?
So right now we're located at Harlem and Touhy on the north side of Chicago. We'll actually be moving offices a little bit later this spring. We'll still be in the same general location, but we'll be closer to Milwaukee and Devon on the north side of Chicago rather than Harlem and Touhy, though we'll probably keep a little bit of a presence there just so the mail.
And you got an interesting concept. Your website is subscription lawyer, correct?
Correct. Subscriptionlawyer.com.
Okay. And what happens here, and I had this when I was a policeman, because I paid a biweekly fee off of each check to a law firm to cover me on certain things. And my spouse, like say my wife got a traffic ticket, I don't want to be embarrassed going to court with her. I was a policeman at the time. So I had a law firm on retainer, I should use that word, that can represent her and get the situation resolved, as well as drafting up a will for me. And this subscription lawyer was running me about $500 a year. Your subscription lawyer, is that similar to that?
It is. So instead of a monthly fee, you pay one fee up front. That's $500 when you sign the retainer. And then you get a rights card that you can carry with you in your wallet in case you have an encounter where you might need it. And then you're eligible for really steeply discounted rates and services that you might need within the year. So, for example, a family member dies and you have to go and deal with the probate issue in civil court, or you get a traffic ticket, or unfortunately there's a divorce or a custody issue of some kind. It kind of works like legal insurance that way. And the reason I started it is when I was first coming out of law school, the American Bar Association, and you can read about this on our website actually, but the American Bar Association said that more than 80% of people who needed lawyers on the spot couldn't afford to pay attorneys, and that the affordability of legal services was becoming a bigger problem. And at the same time, I'm sure everybody remembers the 2008 recession, but at the same time that I was just coming out of law school, we were kind of feeling the worst effects of that. And so you have more attorneys in the field than ever before. You have a fight to get rates as affordable as ever before. You have clients who have less access to fees than they've ever had. And how are we going to deliver quality services that stand up to our obligations as officers of the court, but still be able to provide, a good life for the staff that works for us? And, because this job isn't easy, and not everybody signs up to do it either. So those were some of the reasons that I started Subscription Lawyers, to give folks an affordable option. And the other thing we do is every quarter we'll sit with an attorney, and an attorney will call you for 15 or 20 minutes and just do a legal wellness check and try to troubleshoot, well, maybe you might need to think about this in the future, so you get a plan on and a plan in place. Because when you have to react to things in the legal profession, that's when it gets really expensive. It gets really time consuming. If you can plan ahead, you get a lot more control over the issue that you're trying to fix for yourself.
And I've said this before on the air. If you get into a legal situation or a medical situation, the bills can stack up
Quickly.
It's not cheap because you're dealing with professionals that have gone to multiple schools. They specialize in these, whether it's medical or legal, and these they don't work for $15 an hour McDonald's pay. You got to get the best and the brightest. People that call up, how much you're going to charge me for this? That's the wrong way to get an attorney. What you got to do, and this is my experience, what you got to do is you got to tell an attorney, hey, this is my situation. Just like they said, you get free consultation even though they're not your subscribers, correct?
Correct. And we don't have to work on a subscription model. We have plenty of clients who walk in day of and need an attorney and are happy to do it the traditional way. But I agree with what you're saying completely. If your first question is, well, how much is this going to cost me? Sometimes you get what you pay for, and sometimes you overpay for something that you didn't need. And you really need to work with somebody who understands your situation and what's going on.
Correct. And as immigration now has become the top focus the last couple of weeks, we want to make sure that whatever your immigration status is, you don't get scooped up. You got to be, especially if you've illegally entered the country. And here's another problem. I talked about this on talk radio in my previous incarnation down at WCGO when I had Legal Eagles. DACA recipients are in jeopardy of their DACA being, withdrawn if they're convicted of certain crimes, correct?
So DACA was a creation of the Obama administration, and it was deferred action for childhood arrivals. And the idea was that if you were brought here as a young child and this is the only home that you've known, we're not going to make you an enforcement priority so long as we can verify you're not a national security risk or a risk to public safety. And that's how DACA started. And one of the things that can happen that can make you ineligible for DACA is you can get a significant misdemeanor. And there's some debate between, at least the last time I looked at case law, between the Seventh Circuit of Illinois and the professionals who run and manage USCIS about whether a DUI is a significant misdemeanor. But typically, and I'm sure in this administration, DUIs are going to be treated as significant misdemeanors. And what that means is if you have DACA, you're eligible to renew it. And if you don't have DACA but you're eligible, you can't apply for it. You won't get it. And, that can be, I can't tell you how many DACA kids that I've worked with that have been in that situation, and they went to court and really didn't understand this, either because they didn't talk to the lawyer about it, or they didn't get the proper admonishments from the court, or, they got bad advice. And it can be really problematic because, yes, DACA in theory protects you from removal, but it's not a form of status like a green card is a form of status. And
Yes.
there's a big case playing out right now in the Texas courts. And I expect that it'll work its way to the Supreme Court about the lawfulness of DACA. And, it's been challenged before. The Supreme Court sort of upheld it in a case called DHS v. Berkeley, I think it was. But the Supreme Court didn't say this is some guaranteed, vestige from on high that's going to protect you in the face of all enforcement actions. They just said you didn't get rid of it the right way in that particular case. So it's going to be really interesting to see I hope that Congress acts. I mean, we could get Congress to act on this particular area. Immigration is, it's not one issue. It's about 15 sub-issues amalgamated together. And we call it immigration, but I would really like to see the Congress act in a way that protects DACA kids, because what's going to happen is a lot of people who receive DACA, if we're not going to live up to the promise that the executive branch made, you're going to be sending a lot of people to countries that are technically their homelands but aren't their homes, and maybe they don't even speak the language, and maybe they have no resources, and maybe they can't get jobs there because it's unlawful to work without certain status or rights or anything else. So just as it is under our law. So and they've talked about potentially getting a deal for DACA kids done. Trump brought it up in his first address to Congress in his first term. He floated the idea of a DACA deal. So I think that might be one small area where Republicans can work with some Democrats and get a bipartisan bill maybe. But if Congress doesn't fix it, it's just sort of okay, we'll save your deportation order for last. That's what DACA is.
Thank you for explaining that to our listeners. And our phone lines, as well as our text messages, are open. If you got a good question, the lawyer is here. He can answer any legal issue questions that you have. I answered police procedural questions last week. Is that the phone line?
So the phone.
Oh, I thought that was flashing. We got flashing lights all over the place, folks. So anyways, off the internet, I get a local internet newspaper called The Patch. I think it's a subsidiary of the Chicago Tribune, but in their most recent edition, they wrote about these DACA raids that they said was running from, not DACA raids, I'm sorry, ICE raids, from Elgin to Waukegan this past week. And one of the stories they give is a North suburban father and grandfather who came to the United States from Mexico more than 30 years ago and was charged with a DUI more than 20 years ago, was arrested by ICE over the weekend. Here's a case that they've dug up, and I'm sure they went through the clerk's files to see who's convicted of DUI. And DUI seems to be an issue because after I retired in 2012, I was brought on as a consultant for a few DACA cases. In 2013, believe it or not, during the Obama administration, there was more deportations than during Trump and, of course, Biden. But I think 2013 or 2014 was when a year where we hit like 400,000 deportations. Yeah. So it was either 2013 and 2014, a DACA student. She had a DUI. She was going to college. She had never been arrested before, not even a speeding ticket, but she got caught one night, drank a little bit too much. And they were worried not only about her driving privileges, of course, but also her immigration status, which opened her up liability of losing the DACA. What would you call it? The DACA recipients, or how would you say that?
Well, you're just a DACA recipient, but your DACA can be revoked, basically.
Yeah.
Or taken away or rescinded. The issue with if you're a green card holder and it's a situation where it's your first DUI and you have no other problems, you're probably not going to be removed. The worst thing, if you even find yourself in removal court, is you'll ask for cancellation of removal, 42A, cancellation of removal for permanent residence. And because a DUI isn't considered an aggravated felony, just your standard first time, no injuries, no property damage, relatively low breath, is not going to be considered an aggravated felony under Immigration and Nationality Law or Immigration and Nationality Act. You would be able to get your green card back. Where it'll become more problematic is for maybe somebody who has no status but has married a U.S. citizen and may be eligible to ask for a provisional waiver, but now the new administration may look at that DUI and say, in our discretion, we view that doesn't warrant an exercise of an approval of an inadmissibility waiver, and so we're not going to let you back in, and you're going to have to either self-deport or eventually we'll remove you. That's where it's going to be much more pain is going to be felt for immigrants with that, is where the government has authority to use its discretion to say, on the basis of any crime, whether it is a crime of violence or an aggravated felony or a CIMT, just on the basis that you committed this, we're not going to approve any kind of pathway forward for you. So, we'll see how those things play out. That person, if they were arrested, would be entitled to ask for bond. And you go before a bond judge and you have to prove that you're not a risk to public safety and you're not a flight risk, and you have to put up some money. It's not like the Safety Act now in Illinois. But, this gets to the real point of when I have immigrants come in and talk to me and say, I've been charged with a DUI. It's so important to try these cases sometimes.
Yes.
And if you can't get the paperwork resolved the right way, and, you're an expert in this area, in the DUI area, and you've written a book, pretty impressive book, right?
DUI jury trial.
That's it, DUI jury trial. So you could educate your audience better than I could on this particular part. But when you're fighting a DUI case for a citizen, I'll get supervision. I won't even have a conviction. My insurance goes up a little bit, but whatever, I move on with my life. For an immigrant client, this can be the difference between staying and going home. And I might need to find a quality expert like yourself who helps us understand, what were you telling me about the intoxilizers and how you view the process and what you have to argue about to make sure that attorneys like me can get great verdicts for my clients in that situation.
Yeah, so the DACA recipient case that I was involved in, I can't remember the year, 2013 or 2014. I was brought on as an expert witness. It worked out where I didn't have to testify, but the issue was, and this is the main issue that I've gone to as far as West Virginia to testify, the results of the field sobriety test and the results of the breathalyzer test. And my contention in front of the court as well as the jury is, if proper protocol is not followed in the procedure or administration of the test, then the results are invalid. And we're going to go to a quick break. Matt says it's 15 seconds. Stay with us. John, say your last name again.
Heiderscheidt.
And what's your website?
Subscriptionlawyer.com.
He'll be here with us on the second half of the hour, and we're going to discuss immigration and these ICE raids. And if you got any questions, call in.
Elgin's U46 is set to extend its elementary school day by 20 minutes starting in the next school year. The adjustment will see class days beginning 10 minutes earlier and ending 10 minutes later. Half of the district's 38 elementary schools will run from 7:50 a.m. to 2:10 p.m., while the other half will operate from 8:20 a.m. until 2:40 p.m. An Elgin man with a prior conviction for child pornography is now confronting a serious new charge. Robert J. Dodero, 46, arrested on January 20th following an investigation by the Kane County Child Exploitation Unit. He faces 22 counts related to the possession and distribution of child pornography. A St. Charles man and former PTO president Edward T. Eisenstark has been sentenced to 5 years in prison following his guilty plea to multiple charges relating to the grooming of a child. The 38-year-old charged with indecent solicitation of a child, traveling to meet a minor, grooming and solicitation of a sexual act. With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Curdan.
This sandwich is not just spicy, it's flavorful.
Hi, this is Matayo. And this is Elsa. And a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick. Because the spice comes in at just the right moment.
Oh, no. A little thing I love is that cilantro lime sauce. It's a fun blend of zesty and bold. That's what really makes me happy. Are you going to eat all your fries?
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a colonial with high ceilings, hardwood floors, and a peaceful neighborhood. And you found it. Now, every Saturday at 6 a.m., you get to wake to the sound of your neighbor's leaf blower. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states.
Real estate, be it residential or commercial, is often a person's most significant and priciest asset. Entering into a contract to buy or sell a real estate property is much more than just filling in the missing blanks on the printed contract. It's wise to hire a lawyer to prepare or review the offer to purchase real estate and take full advantage of his legal expertise. With Mark Sheblo, you will gain an attorney with over 26 years of legal practice and one who has helped thousands of clients to buy or sell their homes or investment property. We will safeguard your interests and might be able to even negotiate a better bargain than a client without proper legal counsel ever could. Oftentimes, a prospective buyer will submit an offer without first consulting an attorney, not realizing that once the offer is accepted by the seller, it becomes a binding contract. And the terms of that contract are not easy to be changed afterwards. Likewise, as a seller, you too will benefit from first consulting an attorney before signing. Feel free to call us for consultation at the law offices of Mark Sheblo at 773-775-5050. Our website is sheblolawoffice.com. Mark Sheblo can be reached 6 days a week at 773-775-5050.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast. This afternoon, rain and patchy fog with mostly cloudy skies. High near 40, temperatures falling. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 27. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with a high near 36, and temperatures dropping to around 34 in the afternoon. Currently, it is 41 with moderate drizzle. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 113 through 115. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
Welcome back to Life Experiences with William Pelarenos. Here I'm sitting with John Heiderscheidt, an attorney, an immigration attorney, a criminal defense attorney. He was kind enough to give up his afternoon to be with us today to answer some of these questions with all these ICE raids going on. We've had some interesting questions since I began the discussion last Friday. If you have any questions regarding ICE raids or deportation or DACA or green cards, please feel free to call. Our phone lines are open at
847-931-1410.
And they can text us at
505-926-1410.
Matt is the best producer I've ever had. I've been doing this for 14 years. This is the best producer.
Oh, well, thank you.
I have the best people here. And I'm lucky to have John. He was kind enough to give up his afternoon. So feel free to ask any questions. Now, last week, I mentioned that I came here from Canada. I migrated here when I was a small child. My parents were immigrants. I was son of an immigrant. I had a green card up until I got naturalized prior to joining the United States Navy. So now with all this immigration raids and people being scooped up, and in New Jersey there was an issue where some veteran was scooped up in one of these raids mistakenly. My nieces were worried that I might get scooped up. So I said, don't worry, I'm naturalized, but how would I prove it? I'd have to find that certificate. So this week I've been in search of it. And it turns out I'd have to go downtown at 55 Monroe, the court that issued it, and the fee to get a copy of my naturalization certificate is $555. It's an enormous amount of money. I didn't pay that when I got naturalized. It was free.
Yep.
So I happened to mention this to John, and he gave me a couple of suggestions. And it's always good to talk to an attorney before you get in trouble. Yep. Before you go to the police and make statements against your penal interests. Yep. Before the case is winding down and you got to go to trial. I've seen people walk into a lawyer's office and they get court the next day. Hey, man, where have you been the last 30 days? Have you had cases like this, John?
Well, I always have the last minute walk-in, but what you're talking about, when I talk about a criminal case, I break it down into phases. And this is just my anecdotal breakdown. You have the investigative phase, and that can be as simple as like a DUI. It's just right there on the spot, and they do their field sobriety tests. It's a 30 minute to an hour an investigation. And investigations can last years. They could be dragnets that are done by coordinated federal agencies that have executed warrants and have listened in on phone taps. And that's like the Mike Madigan trial. I mean, there's a wide array of, but there's the investigative phase. And in my opinion, for defendants, the cases are often won and lost in that phase, in the facts that have been gathered and the charging decisions that have been made. And then there's the charging decision, because oftentimes you could be charged with an array of conduct, and it's up to the prosecutor to decide what is the best thing to charge with, what's the most reflective of community values and interests, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the evidentiary phase, the discovery phase. That's when I finally start to find out what actually happened. That's when I start to get police cam videos. That's when I start to get BWCs. That's when I get more police reports or reports that were taken just outside the normal course of business. You start to see some lab evidence. You start to see some videos in different places. And that really starts to shape my strategic thinking about, okay, what are your odds to beat this? What are your odds to reduce or mitigate the damage if you can't beat it? And then, you can do your evidentiary motion. Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose, like anything else. And then there's the trial phase. Well, we've named 3 other phases before the trial phase. And if you've waived all of that and you walk in the day the trial is going to occur, yeah, you've done yourself a terrible disservice. And then I look at the appellate phase or post-conviction phase too. Is there anything I can do to undo what's happened? But you are always best served by finding an attorney that you trust to work with, especially if you're charged with a criminal case immediately. Don't wait till the middle. Don't wait till the end. Don't wait to fight with your public defender. If you can afford private defense, get out there and find it immediately. And that's the other idea behind Subscription Lawyer too, is develop the trust and the relationship with the attorney before you need it. Because it's much harder to do that if you're looking around and trying to find 5 or 6 or 7 different people to defend my husband or my kid or myself or my wife or, my nephew, whoever it may be. It's so much harder to do spur of the moment because the legal process is so complicated. And this as well as anybody, probably even better than me. Sometimes on criminal cases, minutes matter, hours matter in the decisions that you make. And it's really important to be working with somebody knowledgeable and who can help you the right way.
Yes, that's important. Folks, I've been in this legal system since 1983. Let me tell you something. I've seen, especially as a policeman, I saw people walk into court on their first court date, and the judge tells them, you should get a lawyer. You're walking into court. It's been at least 2 weeks since you got cited, because when I was a policeman, whether I booked somebody in a traffic ticket or a criminal or a felony violation, misdemeanor or felony, I couldn't book them prior to 14 days. I had to give more than 14 days and not more than 60 for the initial court date. Now, when it came to DUIs, if I went past that, they invoked trainer, which is a lawyer's, motion.
Yeah.
It was just a lawyer's motion to say, hey, you know what? He went beyond the allotted time to book somebody into court. So you've got at least 14 days from the time of arrest to the time of the first court date. Mostly it's about 30 to 45 days is the window in there. That's usually. But if you wait till the court date to get a lawyer, a lot of that evidence that can help you is gone.
Yep.
Because as a policeman, I know that our in-house, in-station, booking room videotapes are recorded over after 30 days. So if you get a lawyer more than 30 days after the arrest, he's not going to be able to retrieve that evidence, and the video evidence might exonerate you.
Absolutely. Did you say we had a call?
We do have a call, yes. All right. Hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi. I was listening to the gentleman that was talking about that he is a immigrant. Well, his parents was immigrant, and then he was naturalized years, and it cost him $555 to get a copy of that.
That's what I found out this week.
Okay, my question is here, because everybody starts talking and maybe exaggerating, but what happens if my parents came, they had the alien resident card, and then they did become U.S. citizens, and then I was born? Am I subject to get picked up?
You're talking about birthright. You were born in the United States, right?
Yes.
So you were born, but your parents were immigrants with green cards, correct?
Correct. And then they did become U.S. citizens in 1980 something.
Okay, so you were born in the United States prior to this past week. You were solid. You were known as an anchor baby, correct, John?
Well, that's not a term I'd use, but it's a common one that is out there. You're fine. You're not going to be deported. Don't worry about it.
Okay, great. And the reason why I bring this up is because somebody told me this, and I even said, wait a minute. No. Let's not get paranoid. There's certain things that, the president is going to do which makes sense, but I don't think I'm going to be in that situation. So I'm glad that you cleared that up.
I'm really happy that you called in with this question, because the birthright citizenship topic is is one that's very front of mind, and it was one of the first executive orders. The reason I say that you're fine, number one, regardless of any court proceedings, the executive order says that children of citizens are legal permanent residents, and you only need one parent to fill those categories under the executive order. So you're fine. You would click both of those boxes. It sounds like from what you said on the call. But with birthright citizenship in general, this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest questions that the Supreme Court will address in the entirety of the Trump presidency in terms of immigration, because there's no modern case law on it. There's just how we've done things for the past 100 or 150 years or so. And I am really interested to see, I know that we have what's perceived to be a pretty conservative 6-3 justice majority, but some of those conservative justices on particular issues will migrate over to the more liberal justices, or the justices who are perceived more liberally on certain select issues, and create like 5-4 majorities on specific case issues. And I'm watching this to see if that happens on this one. I would be, I think that when we talk about naturalization in general, well, the Constitution under Article 1, Section 8 says that it's Congress that makes these rules. It doesn't say that the executive makes these rules. It says that Congress makes these rules. Well, under the Immigration and Nationality Act of the 1950s, they basically Congress ceded a lot of its authority under Article 1, Section 8 to the executive vis-a-vis enforcement priorities. And, that's what accounts for why the president has such wide latitude in discretion and enforcement and non-enforcement in immigration. And, but the president can't just write laws. I mean, that's what the legislature is here for. And so, if I had to make, and I have not looked at I have not parsed through the pleadings that have been filed on this or that are yet to be filed at the appellate level, but I think you may see some sort of 5-4 decision that says that rule has to come from Congress, that the president can't make it. Whether that bears out or not, I don't know. We'll see over time. And again, that's why I'm saying I'm following intently. I don't have every answer and I don't know everything, but that one is, of all the prerogatives that this administration has, that one seems to me to be the least likely to succeed.
Are you still there?
Okay. So, yeah, no, I'm still here, and I wanted to clarify something. So I was born in 1970, and so when I was born, my parents were, what's the right term? They were here rightfully. They came through the front door with their resident card or their alien card. Okay. Then, so I was born when they were not U.S. citizens. When they became citizens, that's when I was, like in 8th grade.
Sure.
So I'm still okay, right?
It would be my opinion that you're fine, just based on what you're telling me. What you're saying, though, brings up a really good ambiguity, and it highlights why I'm not so sure that the Supreme Court is going to go along with this EO. Is the question that you have is going to be the same question that probably 5 million people in this country have, based on trying to undo that. And then you have to consider in law, there's a concept known as retroactivity. Just because we're going to apply it going forward doesn't mean we're going to apply it going backwards. And I could totally see the Supreme Court saying that whatever ruling they issue on this birthright thing would not be retroactive. So it has a propensity to create a lot of these kinds of questions for people, and it's right to ask them. And but I think as I read the EO right now, you would be fine.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Don't hang up. I'm glad you called.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of anxiety about this issue. And last week, if you heard my show, me and Sonar, my own niece was worried about me being scooped up in these raids because I was born in Canada. Even though I'm naturalized.
Yeah, that's why I called.
Even though I'm naturalized, I served in the U.S. Navy. I was law enforcement for 27 years, okay? But she's worried about, Uncle Bill, I think, what are you going to get scooped up? What are you going to do? I'm going to tell him, si hablo español, take me back. But let me say, the reality is every country has immigration laws. And even Canada, my birth country, you just can't sneak in there. The problem is here is our borders were wide open for 3.5, 4 years. So you got 11 million illegal immigrants that crossed over during that period. But I did a little math. To deport the 11 million that came in illegally the last 4 years, the federal government would have to deport 7,462 people per day. It's just logistically impossible.
And what complicates that even further is, the perception that everybody who came through in the Biden administration, or the mass of it, was illegally. A lot of them got parole stamps at the front door after they were encountered. So, I'd say this to different people, one person's refugee is another person's illegal, is another person's this or that. But the terms really, the parlance we use really matters as we address these individual immigration questions at the person-to-person level. And what I encourage anybody to do, not just you, but anybody who has questions about what is their immigration status, what am I looking at, go find an immigration lawyer to talk to now. Don't wait until it becomes a problem. Even if you just have a 5-minute conversation like we just had here, and you walk away feeling a little bit better, establish that relationship with that lawyer now. Go to subscriptionlawyer.com, go to some of the other websites that are out there, Google and see, immigration attorney that can help me or whatever your Google search might be. But, these questions are going to have to be answered. And this is just society gets a window into what practicing immigration law is like. Immigration law is really complicated. It's subject to change on the fly. And, what was true on Tuesday may not be true on Thursday. And that's a result of all the different branches of government, the Supreme Court, the Congress, and the executive never being quite on the same page in this area. And I really sincerely hope we see some we see Congress address immigration in a meaningful bipartisan way. Because it would be very, very helpful for a lot of the people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question, lady?
Yes, thank you very much.
Hey, I'm glad you listened to the show, and I'm glad you call in. And every Friday I'll be here, and I book guests for the next couple of weeks on different issues. But I'm so glad John came because he can tell you the legal aspect of the situation, where I tell you the police procedural aspect of the situation from my life experience. So what I want to tell you is, this is what I told my nieces: don't worry until it's time to worry, but always seek out legal counseling. John and his co-workers give free consultation. I've known some lawyers that actually charge you for consultation. So it's your time invested in a situation so you know what your rights are. Now, I certainly don't condone any illegal activity, but it's important that if you're arrested for any crime, whether it be DUI or domestic battery, always seek the advice of a lawyer immediately. If you're arrested Wednesday, I'd say Thursday morning you'd be in the law office, because John and other lawyers got to set forward to get all the facts of the case, the videos, the police reports, and that's called a motion for discovery. Plus, they send out subpoenas. And like I said, after 30 days, some of these tapes are erased. That evidence is gone. And not everybody that's arrested, and I saw this as a policeman, not everybody that's arrested is guilty. People get scooped up by errors, police procedural errors. They get scooped up in raids. And it's not just immigration raids, but it's other raids. And you got to get a hold of it. Do not wait till the court date to get an attorney, because that evidence is gone. Am I right, John?
100%. And if you're an immigrant in the United States, lawful or unlawful, with or without status, it is triply important to get an attorney who is familiar with both state criminal law and federal immigration law, because the way federal immigration law interprets state criminal law can sometimes be very counterintuitive. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. So because this is where the fear is coming from other people, because I think of not being knowledgeable. So when somebody gets picked up for immigration, right, they are going to be released on a bond, and then they have the right to have a lawyer and to prove their case that they're not immigrant, that they're legally here correctly or wrong.
So if you're an immigrant and you're arrested, you have the right to request a bond hearing, and you have the right to representation. Go ahead.
No matter if you are here illegal or legal.
Correct. You have the right to a bond hearing unless under INA 236C, you have to be detained mandatory. If you commit certain crimes, The immigration law says that you don't have a right to ask for bond. But for most of the cases, especially if you have no criminal history, you have a right to ask for bond. And then what happens is the immigration judge, along with the attorney for the immigrant and the attorney for the government, usually called OCC or ACC, will make arguments about why the individual is or is not a flight risk and is or is not a risk to public safety. And then the judge will determine, okay, I'm not going to grant bond, or I am going to grant bond, or I'm going to grant bond, but it's going to be a high number. You're going to have to pay like $15,000. And some of the factor that goes into that, your second question about if you're legal or illegal, or if you have a pathway, if I can make a prima facie case that I'm eligible for asylum, if I can make a prima facie case that I'm eligible for cancellation, if I can make a prima facie case that I'm eligible for CAT, Convention Against Torture, something like that, that will be part of the judge's determination sometimes into how much bond to give. What are your ties, your family ties? Do you have U.S. citizen family? Are you from a mixed status family? Do you have kids here? Those are all factors that some of the judges look at in determining what kind of bond to give out or not. And, the interesting thing about it used to be in Illinois that you could pay bond for criminal cases too. Now you can't. We have the Safety Act, but in immigration cases, you don't get to pay 10%. Like it used to be in criminal cases, if they said $100,000 D bond, you had to put up $10,000. You had to put up 10% of what they asked for. In immigration bond, you have to put it all up. There's no 10%.
Oh, wow.
So I did a hearing in Texas one time where the respondent the judge said, yeah, I'll give you bond, $25,000. A lot of folks who are in that situation can't come up with that. And then it becomes, am I going to wait here in custody and take my chance on, can I get an application approved? Or am I just going to say, you know what, deport me. I don't want to sit here in the jail cell.
John, I got to cut you off. We're down to 1 minute. See how fast time goes?
It does when you're having fun.
Young lady, what was your first name? What was your first name?
Calling.
Susan.
Oh, and listen to us next week. I got another interesting guest, and I'll try to get John back in a couple weeks. John, is that good with you?
I would love to. I had so much fun. This is a great show. You're a wonderful host, and you have an even more talented producer.
Yes, but
it was nice to have Nora with us too.
We're going to discuss bond hearings at the federal level. A topic you just started. We'll continue with that in a couple of weeks, and I'll tell you, and we'll promote the show during the week. Listen to Matt's afternoon show. And he'll tell you what's going on every week. And have a good and safe week out there. Everybody follow me on Police Project One or at my Twitter and on Facebook, Pelarenos Police Project. Thank you. Have a great week.
Bye-bye, everybody.
At School of Rock, we've got something for everyone. We're located at 353 South Randall Road in Elgin, Illinois. For teens 12 to 18, our performance program prepares students for live shows at real rock venues. For ages 8 to 12, Rock 101 helps young musicians start their journey with private lessons and group rehearsals. Our rookies aged 6 to 7 explore instruments through fun games, while Little Wing, ages 4 to 5, introduces preschoolers to the basics of rock and roll music. And for adults 18 plus, we've got an exciting adult performance program for all skill levels, from beginners to experienced musicians. Visit the website at elgin.schoolofrock.com. to sign up for a free trial. We start pre-enrollments in January, targeting a mid-February open. Unleash your inner rock star. Join us at School of Rock and let's make some noise.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 1 o'clock.
This is WRMN News.
Hello, I'm Dennis Green. Recovery efforts have resumed on the Potomac River, where wreckage from Wednesday's deadly aircraft collision at Reagan National Airport can be seen sticking out of the water. News Nation's Alex Capriello reports crews will have their hands full with today's weather.
The pace of the current of that water in the river really rapid, it seems to me, which will certainly add difficulty for the EMS and the fire crews and divers that'll go out out there that are still looking to recover as many bodies as possible. At latest count, at least 30 people have been recovered for that river, but we know 67 in total between the American Airlines aircraft as well as that Black Hawk helicopter. The water temperature currently at 43 degrees Fahrenheit, and we do expect a lot of rain. About an inch will come down on the metro area in total by about midnight tonight.
It's now been reported that the Black Hawk helicopter may not have been flying at the proper altitude. A preliminary report could be ready in a couple of weeks. All 64 people aboard the American Eagle flight number 5342 and 3 soldiers on the Black Hawk helicopter were killed in the crash. A man who survived the New Year's Day truck attack in New Orleans French Quarter got a big surprise from his favorite team. News Nation's Nick Smith reports he's going to the Super Bowl.
Former Princeton football player Ryan Quigley surprised with Super Bowl tickets. He was injured in the attack, and his best friend and former teammate Tiger Besh was killed. Now, Quigley says he's a lifelong Eagles fan and thanks the team for keeping his friend's story alive.
The Super Bowl happens February 9th at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans.
WRMN News, produced in Studio 14 by the River Media Network.
With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan. Brought to you by Sky Rizzy. Construction is progressing rapidly at Naperville's Block 59 development with 3 major tenants set to open their doors this spring. Shake Shack, Stan's Donuts, and the Cheesecake Factory are among the highly anticipated additions to the entertainment and dining complex at Route 59 and Aurora Avenue. 20-year-old David Celestine of Wheeling has been arrested for his alleged involvement in a shooting that occurred at McDonald's on Summit Street in Elgin. The incident occurred on Sunday afternoon and left one man seriously injured. Celestine faces serious charges including aggravated discharge of a firearm and possession of a firearm without a FOID card. You have until February 6th to drop off your Valentine's Day cards at Simon's Madison Funeral Home in Elgin. They've put together this card drive for local veterans, and they'll be dropping off the cards with local veterans the week of February 10th. With your 1410 WRMN News Flash, I'm Sean Kernan.
This sandwich is not just spicy, it's flavorful.
Hi, this is Matayo.
And this is Elsa.
And a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick.
Because the spice comes in at just the right moment. Oh, no. A little thing I love is that cilantro lime sauce. It's a fun blend of zesty and bold. That's what really makes me happy. Are you going to eat all your fries?
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a colonial with high ceilings, hardwood floors, and a peaceful neighborhood. And you found it. Now, every Saturday at 6 a.m., you get to wake to the sound of your neighbor's leaf blower. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast. This afternoon, rain and patchy fog with mostly cloudy skies. High near 40, temperatures falling. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 27. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with a high near 36, and temperatures dropping to around 34 in the afternoon. Currently, it is 41 with moderate drizzle. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
Now's the time to shop limited time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5 amp hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 113 through 115. Selection varies by location.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? It seems impossible to find them. Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go. ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online.
Uh-huh.
I read that black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older, like you, are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
Visit WeTalkWeRise.com to learn more. Brought to you by Pfizer.